March 10th, 1945, Barrio San Miguel, Northern Luzon, Philippines. Captain Edward Riley stands in the village square, watching children play a game with a worn leather ball. The children are thin from years of inadequate food under Japanese occupation, but they laugh and shout as they kick the ball between improvised goals marked with stones. An elderly woman sits on the steps of a small church watching them, her face showing the kind of tired contentment that comes from surviving 3 years of war and seeing children still able to play. Riley is here to meet with Vicente Salazar, the guerrilla commander whose fighters live in this village. Salazar's wife brings Riley water in a clay cup. She does not speak much English, but she smiles and gestures for him to sit in the shade. Riley thanks her in his limited Tagalog. He has been working with these guerrillas for 11 weeks, coordinating attacks on Japanese supply lines in preparation for the American advance toward Manila. He knows many of these families. He has eaten meals in their homes. The children playing in the square belong to men who fight under his tactical direction. One child, a girl perhaps 7 years old, kicks the ball too hard, and it rolls to Riley's feet. She runs over, hesitates when she sees his American uniform, then smiles shyly. Riley picks up the ball and hands it to her. She says something in Tagalog he does not understand, laughs, and runs back to the game. Salazar arrives 20 minutes later. He is a former school teacher, 41 years old, who has been fighting Japanese forces since 1942. Riley respects his tactical judgment and his discipline. They walk to the edge of the village where they can speak privately. "I have identified a target," Riley says. "Japanese ammunition depot 6 miles southeast of here. Large stockpile, minimal guards, high military value." Salazar nods slowly. "And the risk?" "Significant. The depot supplies the garrison defending the approach to Manila. Destroying it will impact their defensive capabilities. But Japanese forces will know guerrillas conducted the attack. They may conduct reprisal operations against villages in this area." Salazar looks back toward San Miguel. The sound of children playing is still audible. "Against this village?" "Possibly. I cannot guarantee they will, but based on previous patterns, there is a strong likelihood they will retaliate against the nearest civilian population." They walk in silence for a moment. Riley has been thinking about this conversation for 3 days. He has reviewed intelligence reports documenting Japanese reprisal operations throughout the Philippines. Villages burned, civilian men executed, sometimes entire communities destroyed as collective punishment for guerrilla activity. The pattern is consistent and well documented. Attacking the ammunition depot will almost certainly provoke a response. "Captain, I have a question," Salazar says carefully. "If you believe the Japanese will attack San Miguel, why are you considering this operation?" Riley has asked himself this same question. The answer comes from his orders, from military doctrine, from the logic of guerrilla warfare, as explained by his commanding officer, Colonel Bradford. Legitimate military operations against valid targets cannot be abandoned simply because the enemy might commit war crimes in response. That would give occupying forces total control through terror. Resistance would become impossible. The responsibility for reprisals lies with those who commit them, not with those conducting lawful military operations. But standing here within sight of the village, hearing children play, this logic feels insufficient. "Because headquarters has ordered maximum disruption of Japanese supply lines before our main advance," Riley says. because destroying that depot will save American lives when we attack Manila. Because if we stop fighting every time the enemy threatens civilians, we stop fighting entirely. And because you have no choice, Salazar adds quietly, you have orders. Yes, I have orders. Salazar is silent for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is steady. Captain, we have been fighting for 3 years. The Japanese kill our people whether we resist or not. They execute villagers for failing to bow properly. They take our food and let us starve. If we attack the depot and they retaliate, they commit another crime in a long list of crimes. But if we do nothing, we remain occupied forever. I will ask my men, but I believe they will choose to fight. 2 days later, Riley sits in a bamboo hut 3 miles from San Miguel, studying a hand-drawn map of the ammunition depot. Salazar has confirmed that his guerrilla fighters accept the risks. 12 men have volunteered for the operation. Riley has drafted the tactical plan and submitted it to Colonel Bradford for approval. The response came back within hours. Operation approved. Execute as planned. Riley stares at the approval message. There is a line at the bottom. Risk to civilian population assessed as acceptable, given military value of target. Enemy bears sole responsibility for any reprisal actions. Acceptable risk. Riley writes those words into his operational plan under the risk assessment section. He signs the document. His hand does not shake, but he notices he is gripping the pen harder than necessary. March 15th, 0300 hours. Riley moves through darkness with 12 Filipino guerrilla fighters toward the Japanese ammunition depot. They have rehearsed this operation for 2 days. Everyone knows their role. The approach is silent, single file through jungle paths that avoid Japanese patrols. Riley can hear his own breathing and the soft footsteps of the men around him. The depot appears ahead, a collection of wooden structures surrounded by a wire fence. 2 guards are visible near the main gate. Salazar's men move into position. Riley watches from 30 yards away as the lead fighters approach the fence at its weakest point. Wire cutters. Quiet penetration. The guards do not notice. The team moves inside the compound. Riley checks his watch. They have 12 minutes before the next guard rotation. Demolition charges are placed on 3 storage buildings. The team works quickly, efficiently, exactly as trained. Riley can see the shapes of crates through open doorway of the nearest building. Artillery shells, small arms ammunition, possibly explosives, everything that makes this target worth the risk. A noise from the far side of the compound. One of the Japanese guards has heard something. He calls out in Japanese. Riley's heart rate increases. If the alarm is raised now, before charges are set, the entire operation fails. Salazar signals to 2 fighters who move to intercept the guard. There is a brief scuffle, muffled and quick. Silence returns. The final charges are placed. The team withdraws through the fence and moves to a safe distance northeast of the depot, away from San Miguel as Riley planned. If Japanese forces pursue, they will follow the withdrawal route away from the village. Salazar looks at Riley. Riley nods. Salazar triggers the detonator. The explosion lights up the night. 3 storage buildings erupt simultaneously. Massive fireballs rising into darkness. Secondary explosions follow as ammunition cooks off. The sound is enormous, echoing across the valley. Riley watches the depot burn and knows this will be visible for miles. Japanese forces will respond. The garrison will know exactly where the attack occurred, and they will know guerrillas are operating in this area. By dawn, the team has returned to the jungle camp. No casualties. Complete destruction of the target. Estimated 30 Japanese soldiers killed in the explosions. Riley composes his after-action report. Mission accomplished. Target destroyed. Significant enemy losses. He submits the report to headquarters. Colonel Bradford's response arrives 6 hours later. Excellent work, Captain. Textbook guerrilla coordination. Significant disruption of enemy logistics. Recommend you for promotion to major. Continue planning similar high-value operations. Promotion to major. Riley reads the message twice. He has executed a successful operation, achieved strategic objectives, protected his team. This is what effective leadership produces. Recognition, advancement. He allows himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The operation worked exactly as planned. The guerrilla fighters are celebrating quietly in camp. Salazar approaches Riley with a tired smile. We did well, Captain. Clean operation. No mistakes. Your men performed perfectly, Riley replies. Professional soldiers. They will be proud to hear you say that. Riley sleeps that night for the first time in 4 days without the weight of planning the operation keeping him awake. The depot is destroyed. The mission is complete. Tomorrow he will begin planning the next operation. March the 17th, mid-morning. Riley is reviewing maps of potential targets when he hears shouting from the edge of camp. A guerrilla scout is running through the jungle at full speed, crashing through undergrowth without any attempt at stealth. The entire camp reacts immediately, fighters grabbing weapons and moving to defensive positions. Something is catastrophically wrong. The scout reaches the camp and collapses to his knees, gasping for air. His face shows an expression Riley has never seen on any soldier. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. Complete horror. Salazar runs to the scout and grabs his shoulders. What happened? Where did you come from? The scout tries to speak but cannot form words. He is shaking violently. Salazar kneels beside him, speaking quietly in Tagalog, trying to calm him enough to communicate. Riley approaches slowly, his stomach tightening with dread he cannot name. Finally, the scout finds his voice. The words come in broken Tagalog that Salazar translates in fragments. San Miguel, yesterday morning, Japanese soldiers, 2 trucks, they surrounded the village. Salazar's face goes completely still. How many soldiers? 40, maybe 50. They gathered everyone in the square. All the men, the old men, boys older than 15. They made them kneel. Then they shot them, all of them. My father, my uncle, my cousins. The camp has gone absolutely silent. Every guerrilla fighter is listening. Several are from San Miguel. The scout continues, his voice breaking. The women and children, they pushed them into the church. All of them. They locked the doors. Then they set it on fire. Salazar releases the scout and stands up slowly. His expression is blank, his eyes focused on nothing. Riley feels something cold spreading through his chest. How many? Riley asks quietly. The scout looks at him. Everyone, Captain. Everyone who was in the village. 400 people. Maybe more. I was in the fields. I saw the smoke. I came back and found bodies. The church is still burning. Riley remembers the little girl who brought him the ball, the elderly woman on the church steps, Salazar's wife who brought him water, 400 people. The guerrilla fighters are looking at Riley now. No one speaks. The silence stretches until it becomes unbearable. Riley turns and walks to his tent. He can hear Salazar behind him speaking to the men in Tagalog, but the words sound distant, muffled, as if underwater. Riley sits down at his desk. The after-action report is still there. Mission accomplished, target destroyed, no friendly casualties. Recommend for promotion. He picks up the report and reads the line at the bottom. Risk to civilian population assessed as acceptable. 412 people are dead. The little girl is dead. The old woman is dead. Salazar's wife is dead. They died yesterday morning while Riley was sleeping. Satisfied with his successful operation, waiting for his promotion. Acceptable risk. March 17th, 1945. Afternoon. Captain Edward Riley sits in his tent writing a report to Colonel Bradford at 6th Army Headquarters. His hand is steady. The report must be factual, precise, and complete. Japanese forces conducted a massacre at Barrio San Miguel on March 16th. Approximately 412 civilian casualties. Women, children, elderly men, and non-combatant males executed or burned alive in the village church. The massacre occurred 36 hours after the guerrilla operation against the ammunition depot. Riley pauses. He needs to state the connection clearly. He writes, "The timing and location of this atrocity suggest it was conducted as reprisal for the ammunition depot operation on March 15th. Japanese forces appear to have targeted San Miguel specifically because guerrilla fighters involved in the operation were known to reside in that village." He reads the sentence 3 times. It is accurate. It documents what happened. It establishes the causal relationship between his operation and the civilian deaths. This is the correct procedure. When war crimes occur, they must be reported through proper channels. Colonel Bradford will forward this to higher headquarters. An investigation will be initiated. The Japanese commander who ordered the massacre will be identified and potentially prosecuted after the war ends. Riley signs the report and transmits it via radio. He has done what regulations require. He has documented the atrocity and reported it to his chain of command. This is how the system works. Vicente Salazar has not spoken since the scout brought news of the massacre. He sits outside his tent staring toward the direction of San Miguel, which is not visible through the jungle, but which he seems to see anyway. Other guerrilla fighters are preparing to go to the village to recover bodies and determine if anyone survived. Riley offered to accompany them. Salazar said no. American officer presence might draw Japanese patrols. The guerrillas will go alone. Riley waits. There is nothing else to do. He cannot undo the operation. He cannot bring back the dead. He can only follow procedures and wait for headquarters to respond. Colonel Bradford's reply arrives 4 hours later. Riley reads it standing outside the radio tent. Captain Riley, receipt acknowledged of your report regarding civilian casualties at Barrio San Miguel. This incident will be documented as a Japanese war crime. Evidence should be collected and preserved for potential future prosecution. However, it is important to note that enemy atrocities do not constitute grounds for ceasing guerrilla operations. The ammunition depot operation was militarily justified and successfully executed. Enemy reprisals, while tragic, are the sole responsibility of those who commit them. You are ordered to continue planning disruption operations as previously directed. Morale among guerrilla forces should be managed to prevent degradation of combat effectiveness. Riley reads the message 3 times. Every sentence is procedurally correct. Japanese forces committed a war crime. They bear sole responsibility. Guerrilla operations must continue despite enemy atrocities. Morale must be maintained. All of this is consistent with the military doctrine and the laws of war. But 412 people are dead, and headquarters is telling him to continue planning identical operations that will likely produce identical results. Riley composes a response. He chooses his words carefully because questioning orders requires precise language. Sir, request clarification on acceptable civilian risk thresholds for future operations. The San Miguel massacre demonstrates that Japanese forces will conduct large-scale reprisals against villages associated with guerrilla activity. Recommend suspension of operations in areas with significant civilian populations until American forces advance closer, reducing the window for enemy reprisals. He submits the message and waits. He is not refusing orders. He is requesting clarification and making a tactical recommendation. This is within his authority as an officer responsible for guerrilla coordination. Bradford's response comes back within 2 hours. Captain Riley, there are no acceptable civilian risk thresholds because we do not control enemy decisions to commit atrocities. Your recommendation to suspend operations is noted but rejected. Guerrilla disruption operations are critical to reducing American casualties during our advance. We cannot allow enemy terror tactics to dictate our operational planning. If we cease operations every time the enemy threatens civilians, we grant them veto power over our strategy. Continue mission as assigned. Riley sits down slowly. Bradford is correct, according to every military manual ever written. Allowing enemy terror tactics to stop resistance operations would make occupation permanent. This logic has been applied in France, Yugoslavia, China, everywhere guerrillas fight against occupiers. The alternative is surrender, disguised as humanitarian concern. But Riley knows the people in San Miguel are not abstract statistics. They were specific individuals with names and faces and lives. And they are dead because he ordered an operation knowing reprisals were likely. That evening, Salazar and 5 guerrilla fighters return from San Miguel. They do not speak when they enter camp. Their clothes are stained with ash and blood. One fighter is carrying a small bundle, wrapped in cloth. Riley does not ask what is in the bundle. Salazar walks past Riley without acknowledgement and enters his tent. Riley waits 30 minutes, then approaches. Salazar is sitting on the ground with his back against a wooden post. His face is empty of expression. Vicente, I am sorry. I cannot say anything that makes this acceptable, but I need you to know I reported the massacre to headquarters. It is being documented as a war crime. Salazar looks at him for a long moment. What did they say? They acknowledged the report. They stated that Japanese forces bear sole responsibility. They ordered us to continue operations. Continue operations? Salazar repeats the word slowly. More villages. More reprisals. That is the logic headquarters is using. If we stop fighting because of enemy atrocities, they control us through terror. Captain, my wife burned to death in that church. My daughter burned to death. She was 8 years old. Do you understand what I am telling you? My child is dead because I helped you destroy an ammunition depot. Riley has no response. Anything he says will sound like justification or excuse. He remains silent. Salazar continues, his voice completely flat. You asked me if we accepted the risk. I said yes. I believed we were fighting for liberation. I believed the Americans would protect us after we helped them. I was wrong. You used us to attack a target and then left us to face the consequences alone. Vicente, I did not leave you. I did not know they would do this. You told me they might. You said reprisals were possible. I agreed because I thought possible meant small. 20 people maybe, 30, not 400, not everyone, not children locked in a church and burned alive. Riley feels something breaking inside his chest. I should have been more specific about the risk. You should have refused the mission. Salazar stands up. You are an American officer. You have authority. You could have told your colonel this target was not worth Filipino lives. But you followed orders. And now everyone I loved is dead. Salazar walks out of the tent. Riley does not follow. He returns to his own tent and sits at his desk. He writes another message to Colonel Bradford. Sir, guerrilla morale has been severely impacted by the San Miguel massacre. Commander Salazar has lost his family. Other fighters lost relatives. Request permission to suspend operations for 2 weeks to allow grieving period and reassessment of civilian risk protocols. The response comes back within an hour. Request denied. Operational tempo must be maintained. Guerrilla forces knew the risks when they chose to resist occupation. Grief is understandable, but cannot interfere with military necessity. You're ordered to continue coordinating operations. If Salazar is unable to command effectively due to emotional distress, replace him with another guerrilla leader. Replace him. Riley reads that line multiple times. Salazar's family was killed as a result of an operation Riley planned, and headquarters' solution is to replace him if he cannot function effectively. Riley does not respond. He cannot compose words that would be appropriate to transmit through official channels. The next morning, March 18th, Riley receives another communication from headquarters. This one is marked priority. He opens it, expecting further operational directives. The message is from the Public Information Office. Captain Riley, your recent guerrilla coordination operations have been noted as examples of effective irregular warfare tactics. We are preparing a report for circulation among Pacific Theater units highlighting successful disruption operations. Your March 15th ammunition depot raid will be featured as a case study in guerrilla warfare best practices. Please provide additional operational details, including planning process, execution timeline, and tactical innovations employed. Riley stares at the message. They want to use his operation as a training example. They want other officers to study how he planned and executed the raid. They want to distribute this as a model for future operations. He composes his response carefully. Sir, I do not believe the March 15th operation should be highlighted as a best practices example, given the subsequent civilian casualties at San Miguel. The reply comes back within 3 hours. Captain Riley, enemy war crimes do not invalidate the tactical success of lawful military operations. The ammunition depot operation achieved its objectives with no friendly casualties. Japanese reprisals are a separate matter and do not reflect on the quality of your planning or execution. Your operational methodology is sound and should be shared with other units conducting guerrilla coordination. Riley closes his eyes. The system has categorized everything perfectly. Successful military operation in one file, enemy war crime in another file. No connection between them. His promotion to major is being processed. His tactics are being distributed as training material. The massacre is being documented for potential war crimes prosecution. Everything has been placed in the appropriate administrative category, and 412 people are still dead. That afternoon, Riley walks to Salazar's tent. The guerrilla commander is preparing equipment for a patrol. He does not look at Riley. Vicente, Headquarters wants to feature our operation as a training example for other units. Salazar stops working. He turns slowly to face Riley. They want other American officers to do what you did. They believe the operation was tactically sound. 412 people, Captain. That is the result of your tactically sound operation. And they want more officers to follow your example. More operations, more villages, more reprisals. This is how America liberates the Philippines, by teaching officers to sacrifice our families for ammunition depots. That is not what I intended, but that is what you did, and now they are rewarding you for it. Salazar picks up his rifle. I am going to San Miguel to bury my family. Do not follow me. Do not send messages. When I return, I will tell you whether my men will continue fighting for an army that uses us as bait and then celebrates when we are slaughtered. Salazar leaves. Riley stands alone in the empty camp. Around him, guerrilla fighters are preparing to depart for the village. None of them speak to him. He has become something else to them. Not an ally, not a commander, something that brought death to their families and then called it acceptable risk. Riley returns to his tent and finds another message waiting. This one is from the promotions board. Captain Edward Riley, your promotion to Major has been approved effective March 20th, 1945. Congratulations on your exemplary service coordinating guerrilla operations in the Philippines. Your tactical expertise and leadership have significantly contributed to the success of liberation operations. Exemplary service, tactical expertise, significant contribution to success. Riley sits down at his desk. He has followed every regulation, reported through proper channels, requested clarification and guidance, documented everything correctly. The system has processed his actions and determined them to be not just acceptable, but exemplary. He opens his journal and writes the only sentence that feels true. I killed 412 people by following orders, and the army is promoting me for it. Chapter 3. After revised March 20th, 1945. Captain Edward Riley, promoted to Major effective this date, stands outside his tent watching Vicente Salazar return to camp. The guerrilla commander has been gone for 3 days burying his family and the other dead from San Miguel. Salazar walks slowly, his uniform stained with dried mud and ash. His face shows nothing, not grief, not anger, just complete absence of expression. Riley has rehearsed what he will say. He has prepared words of condolence, acknowledgement of responsibility, recognition that nothing can repair what happened. But when Salazar stops in front of him, Riley finds he cannot speak any of them. They are all inadequate. The men want to know if we are continuing operations, Salazar says. His voice is flat, mechanical. Vicente, I cannot ask you to keep fighting after what happened. That is not what I asked. I asked if we are continuing operations. Riley hesitates. He received another directive from Colonel Bradford this morning. 2 new targets identified. High-value Japanese supply depots. Guerrilla strikes requested within the next 10 days. Maximum disruption required before American forces begin their final push toward Manila. Headquarters has identified new targets, but I will tell them we need time. I will request a pause in operations. Salazar shakes his head slowly. You requested a pause before. They said no. They will say no again. So I am asking you directly, Major Riley. Are we continuing operations or not? Major Riley. Salazar uses the new rank deliberately, emphasizing the promotion that came 3 days after the massacre. Yes, Riley says quietly. We are continuing operations. Then I need to tell my men. Salazar turns to leave. Vicente, wait. You do not have to do this. You can step down. Let someone else command. You have given enough. Salazar stops, but does not turn around. Major, my wife and daughter are dead. My village is gone. Everyone I knew growing up is dead. I have nothing left except this war. If I stop fighting, I am just a man who helped kill his own family for nothing. If I keep fighting, at least their deaths meant something. So yes, I will keep commanding, and my men will keep attacking Japanese targets, and more villages will probably burn. But we will keep fighting because the alternative is accepting that San Miguel died for no reason at all. He walks away. Riley watches him gather the guerrilla fighters and speak to them in Tagalog. The men listen in silence. Several are crying. When Salazar finishes speaking, they disperse to their tents. No one approaches Riley. April 8th, 1945. Riley coordinates another operation, a Japanese supply convoy moving through a mountain pass. Salazar leads the ambush personally. 12 trucks destroyed, 40 Japanese soldiers killed, 2 guerrilla fighters wounded, neither seriously. Perfect execution by every military standard. Riley writes the after-action report sitting in his tent, while Salazar's men celebrate quietly outside. He can hear them talking in Tagalog, voices subdued despite the victory. They know what comes next. They always know. 3 days later, a scout reports that Japanese forces entered the village of Santa Rosa, 15 miles from the ambush site. The garrison commander assembled all males over the age of 14 in the village square and executed them. 70 people. Then the soldiers burned the village church with families inside. Total casualties estimated at 130. Riley adds the information to his weekly intelligence report. Japanese reprisal operation conducted April 11th against civilian population at Santa Rosa. Estimated 130 casualties. He submits the report. No one replies. The war ends in August. Riley is reassigned to occupation duty in Japan, then discharged in 1946. He returns to the United States. He enrolls in university. He studies engineering. He does not discuss the Philippines. June 1953. Riley is 41 years old. He has been married for 5 years. He works for a construction company in Ohio. His daughter, Sarah, is 7 years old. She finds his discharge papers in a box in the basement and brings them to him while he is reading the newspaper. Daddy, what is the Philippines? Riley looks at the papers. His service record, Guerrilla Liaison Officer, Northern Luzon, 1944 to 1945, promoted to Major, honorable discharge. It is a country in the Pacific. I was stationed there during the war. What did you do there? Riley sets down the newspaper. His daughter is 7 years old, the same age as the girl in San Miguel who brought him the ball. Sarah has the same dark hair, the same bright eyes, the same way of tilting her head when she asks questions. I worked with local fighters, people who were resisting the Japanese occupation. Did you fight bad guys? Yes. Were you a hero? Riley looks at his daughter. She is smiling, proud of her father who fought bad guys in the war. She does not know that her father planned operations that killed more Filipino civilians than Japanese soldiers. She does not know about San Miguel or Santa Rosa or the 5 other villages that burned because of operations he coordinated. She does not know that Japanese officers were tried and imprisoned for massacres that Riley's operations triggered. No, he says quietly, I was not a hero. I just did my job. But you helped people, right? Riley thinks about Vicente Salazar standing in the ruins of his village burying his wife and daughter. He thinks about the promotion message he received 3 days after 412 people burned to death. He thinks about the training manual distributed to other officers teaching them to use his tactics. "I tried to," he says. His daughter hugs him. "I am proud of you, Daddy." Riley holds her carefully, as if she might break. He does not tell her the truth. He will never tell her the truth. She will grow up believing her father did something honorable in the Philippines. And Riley will let her believe it, because the alternative is explaining that honorable men following proper procedures can create horrors indistinguishable from war crimes. November 1960. Riley is 48 years old. He is reading the newspaper after dinner when he sees the headline, "Japanese officers sentenced for Philippine massacres." The article describes war crimes trials conducted in Manila. 4 Japanese officers convicted of ordering reprisal operations against civilian populations during the 1945 campaign. Villages burned, civilians executed. The article lists specific incidents. Riley finds San Miguel in the 3rd paragraph. Captain Yoshiro Tanaka, sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for ordering the massacre of approximately 412 civilians at Barrio San Miguel on March 16, 1945. Evidence presented at trial included witness testimony and Japanese military records documenting the reprisal operation. Riley reads the paragraph 5 times. Captain Tanaka is being punished for the massacre. 15 years in prison for ordering soldiers to burn a church full of women and children. The trial determined he committed a war crime by conducting reprisals against non-combatants. Riley planned the operation that triggered the reprisal. He received a promotion. Tanaka ordered the reprisal. He received 15 years imprisonment. Both men followed military doctrine as understood by their respective commands. Both believed their actions were justified. Both produced the same result, 412 dead civilians. One action is classified as successful guerrilla coordination. The other is classified as a war crime. Riley folds the newspaper carefully. His hands are shaking. He has not thought about San Miguel in detail for years. He has trained himself to think about other things when memories surface. But reading that Tanaka is being punished, while Riley's service record shows commendations and promotions, creates a cognitive dissonance he cannot resolve. He walks to his study and opens the locked drawer where he keeps his military records. The commendation from Colonel Bradford is still there. "Your coordination of irregular forces directly contributed to the success of our advance and the reduction of American casualties." The promotion order. The honorable discharge certificate. Riley looks at these documents and then looks at the newspaper article about Tanaka's conviction. Both are official records. Both are accurate. Neither tells the complete truth. He closes the drawer and locks it. He does not discuss the article with his wife. He returns to his normal evening routine. But that night he dreams about the little girl with the ball, and when he wakes up, he can still hear her laughing. March 1983. Riley is 71 years old, retired. He receives a letter from a researcher at the University of the Philippines. The researcher is documenting civilian casualties during the Japanese occupation and has located records of guerrilla operations in northern Luzon. The letter is polite and academic. "Dear Major Riley, I am conducting research on the impact of guerrilla warfare on civilian populations during the Philippine campaign of 1945. Military records indicate you served as liaison officer coordinating irregular forces in this region. I am particularly interested in understanding how American officers balance military objectives against the risk of Japanese reprisals. Several villages in your operational area, including San Miguel and Santa Rosa, suffered severe reprisal attacks following guerrilla operations. I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to interview you about your experiences and your perspective on these events. Your insights would be invaluable to understanding this difficult period of Philippine history. Riley reads the letter 3 times. The researcher is asking him to explain how he balanced military objectives against civilian risk. The researcher wants to understand his perspective on the reprisal attacks. Riley sits at his desk with blank paper and a pen. He begins writing a response several times. Each time he stops after a few sentences. First attempt, thank you for your letter. I coordinated guerrilla operations in northern Luzon as part of my duties as liaison officer. The Japanese reprisals were tragic, but outside my control. He crosses it out. It sounds like excuse. Second attempt. The guerrilla operations I coordinated were militarily necessary to support the American advance. Enemy forces chose to conduct reprisals. That responsibility lies with them. He crosses it out. It sounds like denial. Third attempt. I planned operations knowing civilians might die. They died. I was promoted. That is what happened. He crosses it out. It sounds like confession without context. Riley realizes there is no version of this story he can tell that captures the complete truth. If he explains military doctrine, he sounds like he is justifying the deaths. If he acknowledges responsibility, he sounds like he is claiming guilt for enemy war crimes. If he refuses to discuss it, he appears to be hiding something. He writes a brief response. Thank you for your letter. Unfortunately, after nearly 40 years, my memory of specific operations is no longer reliable enough to provide useful testimony. I wish you success in your research, but cannot participate in your study. He signs it, seals it, and mails it before he can reconsider. The researcher writes back, thanking him for his response and noting that his name will not appear in the final research unless he changes his mind about participating. Riley's name does not appear in the research. San Miguel is documented as a Japanese war crime. The ammunition depot operation is documented in military archives as a successful guerrilla raid. Riley exists in neither record. April 1991. Riley is 79 years old, dying of cancer in a hospital bed. His daughter Sarah sits beside him holding his hand. She is 45 years old now, married, with children of her own. She has never known the details of her father's war service. He told her years ago that he worked with resistance fighters. She knows he does not like to discuss it. She has respected his silence, but now he is dying and she wants to know if there is anything left unsaid. Anything he needs to speak about before it is too late. Dad, is there anything you want to talk about? Anything from the war? I know you have never discussed it much, but if there is something you need to say, now is the time. Riley looks at his daughter. She has kind eyes. She has lived a good life. She has never experienced war or occupation or the impossible choices that come with them. She believes her father served honorably because he has never told her otherwise. He thinks about telling her about San Miguel, about the girl with the ball, about Salazar standing in the ruins of his village, about the 412 people who died because Riley followed orders and planned a textbook guerrilla operation, about the promotion and the commendation and the training manual, about Captain Tanaka, serving 15 years for ordering a massacre that Riley's operation triggered. He thinks about explaining that he did everything correctly, according to military doctrine, and still caused a catastrophe. That following proper procedures and obeying lawful orders can produce results indistinguishable from atrocities. That the system rewarded him for success measured in destroyed ammunition while Filipino families burned. He thinks about telling her all of this, and then he realizes that doing so would transfer the burden to her. She would spend the rest of her life carrying knowledge she cannot process or resolve. She would question everything she believed about her father, and nothing would change. The dead would still be dead. The records would still show what they show. No, Riley says quietly, there is nothing left unsaid. His daughter squeezes his hand. I love you, Dad. You were a good man. Riley closes his eyes. He thinks about San Miguel one last time, about the choice he made to prioritize an ammunition depot over 400 lives, about whether refusing the mission would have changed anything or simply resulted in another officer making the same choice, about whether he is responsible for deaths he did not order but knew were likely, about whether following orders absolves or implicates. He thinks about all of this, and then he stops thinking. Riley dies 3 days later. His obituary mentions his service in World War II and his career in construction. It notes his loving family. It does not mention the Philippines. The San Miguel massacre remains documented as a Japanese war crime. The ammunition depot operation remains documented as successful guerrilla tactics. Major Edward Riley's name appears in neither record, and no one except Riley ever knew they were the same event seen from different sides of doctrine.